Version 0.14 is the most controversial update in all of Baldi's Basics, and I was right. And all of my opinions were also right. Most of the ones that I decided to point out or talk about got proven completely correct. The principles redesign, the maintenance button, which we'll get to that, the elevator button, starting with the first and most obvious thing that I missed in that entire video was that Mistman actually talked about how 0.14 wasn't going to be big at all. He actually said on Kickstarter, which I didn't even know he announced different things on different places, that the update wouldn't be huge and it would be used for quality of life purposes, which I nailed right on the dot when talking about this update, because he also said he'd be releasing it in parts, which is what he ended up doing. Since that video that I released like 2 months ago, I think now, Mistman has actually released 2 newer parts to 0.14, which is 0.14.1 and 0.14.2. This is 2, and this is 1. Now, 0.14.1 was mainly to launch his newest creation, the BEANS plush. This is him. You see, I have him stretched. I bought him. You can't buy him anymore. It was a limited release, limited edition. I currently have all of them except for the original Baldi that I think released like a few years ago. I can't remember. There wasn't much in this changelog. It was mainly quality of life stuff, of course. Some of them were actually bigger changes than I thought that I never actually made a video on because I got spoiled the instant it came out. Because it was a later update, so I didn't know it was coming out. And I looked in the comments before I even knew it was out, and people were spoiling it. In this update, the conveyor belt rooms got replaced by new crane room, where the crane drops down, picks you up, and drags you over to where the conveyor belts are, and it drops you out there randomly. The cafeterias have their iconic raised roofs, which is beautiful now that we have that because it doesn't feel like one trapped schoolhouse anymore. The one thing I failed to mention, which was the principle of the thing sprite. Being in the office, there's all the posters. His sprite didn't have a changed texture on his poster. So now it's updated to have his bow tie and stuff, which it didn't before. But that was basically it in version 0.14.1. There wasn't much new, which I wasn't expecting. But then again, this was mainly to push the BEANS plush, which thankfully actually worked. Moving on, he talks about the horizontal slice a little bit more, how the updates are slowly coming out, and version 0.14 was the last scheduled update, which is what he talked about, and that's why we're getting more of the horizontal slice. We got this picture right here. We're getting more story mode kind of stuff, which I'm really excited for. We have pathways that I don't think we had before. The trees that I'm happy to see more outside of. More of that hopscotch cement stuff that we see in the corner. 0 notebooks to collect as well, I'd like to point out. Of course, Micah is looking to get a publisher for this game, which if you don't know, publisher is basically a larger brand or studio that can help fund being published and kind of push you out there a little bit more. In conclusion, for this little update headline, he's hard at work on Baldi's Basics Plus 0.14 subversions and the horizontal slice. But next is the update that I actually did cover, which is 0.14.2, which actually had the least amount of changes and additions out of any update that I could probably mention other than 0.9, which we'll get to that. There's a new grid on the advanced map, I know. That is insane. That is the only addition to this update, the only new thing. But there are changes, which I did mention that Cloudycopter has this new way of working where if you are down an entire hallway, Cloudycopter will actually push air to the entire hallway until he hits a wall instead of like stopping in a specific part of the hallway. It wasn't a huge thing to notice. It was something very unnoticeable, but it still happened. Now he goes all the way until he reaches the last block. Playtime speaks a lot more, which is what we really needed. The school rules poster is updated as well. We have a new rule down at the bottom. And the controls menu are now specifically designed for each player's name at the very beginning when you get to choose which player you are, which is really nice if there are several people playing on that same computer. Other than that, there's nothing really too interesting that's happened since then, other than new developments on how people feel about this game.
If enough people tell you that you're drunk, maybe it's time to sit down.
You want me to retire over this? The insurance?
It's not just the insurance. That's the straw that broke the camel's back.
Oh, so this is about my condition. Look! See? I'm better! Howard, I'm fine!
This is not what fine looks like.
I've been seeing so many people hate on this principal model. Even in the comments of the last video, you can find plethora of people hating on this. But I found a lot of people, majority of people, that love this now. And I love that. I had been saying since the starting point of this new model even being in the game, I knew that people were going to change their minds and be like, you know what? This model is actually really good. It is amazing. And I explained why it was amazing because from a game designer perspective, it's designed so well. And I have a few snippets of Micah talking about this through his podcast. I'm going to keep it very brief because I don't want to just spoil the podcast itself and make it so you don't need to listen to it, because there is seriously an hour and a half of a lot of amazing things that he talks about. So please go support his Patreon. It's only like $1 a month, I think. It's really good.
But sometimes it can be the case that one way or another you won't hear him, and then he'd either, run by and be fine, or I'd end up getting sent to detention. There was no way I was going to be able to recreate the original photo. So I ended up having to take the original photo and make a janky edit of the arm. I was just kind of embracing that original style of just doing things that just look kind of bad and kind of weird, because that's what Baldi's Basics is supposed to look like. Obviously, there's a balance.
What he talks about is how the principal was always meant to look like that, and he reinforces the idea that I already talked about, because for some people, it might be startling. You might not know if he's going to send you to detention or not, because sometimes, bear with me, you might not hear him. I'm not here to shame people who don't like the new principal model, because I completely get it. There is a reason why people don't like it, and it's because this character has existed for 7 years now, and having it changed now is very jarring. But when you get used to it, it makes a lot more sense, and it fits the theme a lot more than just this model sitting there going like this. I also really liked this edit of the principal's model that someone made. Micah also pointed out the flesh-colored tie, which I didn't want to keep in the principal's model thing that I was already showing what he was talking about, because I didn't want to just pack in a ton of him talking. Yeah, he talks about the tie.
Even if there are people who think it looks bad, it's not supposed to look good. So I'm leaving it. Clean up the sprite a little bit by making it so you can actually see his bow tie, which was something I'd kind of gone back and forth on for a while, because I think it's kind of funny. It used to be flesh colored.
Thank you for talking about how it was flesh colored, because I already talked about how it looks on there, and it's yellow. Before the model was changed, we already got a hint that that was going to become yellow, and we didn't get it. I've begun to see more and more people also agree that version 0.9 of Baldi's Basics Plus is the worst version that we've ever gotten. And I think I even said something about this, of how it genuinely sucks. And I'm glad to see people finally realizing that version 0.14 really is not the most controversial. 0.9 is. To put this into perspective, there were 6 things added in this update, and only 2 of them were physical in-game things. 4 of those were just random things that were implemented for specific parts, like this lockdown door that only works one time, that if you open it up, it stays open forever. That is one of the additions, because it's only used in the tutorial level, and it's even stated in the additions. I don't really know why it couldn't have just been a bullet point inside of the tutorial. I don't know why it had to be its own separate bullet point, but the tutorial was added, and all of the challenge modes for hide and seek were added. Something I've been seeing a lot of people also say is that Baldi's Basics is probably going to be released completely, with 1.0 being this year. And Miss Man talked about that a little bit. I'm not going to include any of his voice lines from his Patreon. He talks about how the updates are probably going to be more sparse, because he's working on the horizontal slice, which from now on is usually just going to be story implementation or things that are probably going to be in the full release. He said that if he thinks things could be in the pre-release, which is early access, he's probably going to add it. It's not a 100% chance, which is completely understandable. But he explains how most, if not everybody's dates that they put down as when the game is going to release, it's if not a little bit later or a lot later. And I have a feeling it's going to be released next year. I saw someone saying it was going to be released in like 2031, which is just insane. The only reason why it's been taking this long is because he's been, working on other stuff. It took so long for Dr. Reflex to be added is because he's stop motion. I do not see this being released in 2031. If it is released in 2031, the game is going to be dead by then. But what I do know is that we're getting more floors. That's right. Baldi's Basics is getting more floors, and I know this because he said something about it. It was a very short mention, and he talked about how he wants to balance out the game a little bit more. He doesn't want to make it super long, but he wants it to make it long enough to where there's a challenge, which I'm very interested to see where that leads us, if we're gonna get more than 9 notebooks. I'm assuming we will. This image is a few months old at this point, and I'm surprised I haven't talked about it yet. I think this is gonna be the new drop-off point for when you beat the game on Yay floor. It just makes a lot more sense that you're able to walk out and go through the curtains while telling you what your total time was and your total U-Thought points. It's like a glorified pit stop, but for the winners, But yeah, we didn't get much in this update. We didn't get much in the past few updates, which is, I'm really happy to know that a lot of the stuff that I went over and talked about was actually kind of confirmed and reinforced. Because this update is really controversial. I'm still getting comments on that video about how they hate this part of the update, or they love this part of the update. They think that it fits, or they're like, these people are stupid. There's a huge gap in between what people like and dislike with this update. I'm glad I could make an impact on your releases, because I'm actually kind of happy to be known as the farm guy. I actually don't know if we'll get the farm. Are we ever going to get the farm again? He hasn't really even talked about that. I don't even know if he talked about that in the podcast at all. There were plans that he talked about how he wanted to add other ones, like a game show, that I actually talked about all the way back in a stream, I think on version 0.10. It's even in the Baldi's Basics wiki, people talking about this event that, I got in my stream. I'll leave a clip. Who Wants to Be a Bajillionaire is so infamous in the community that it now has its own Wikipedia page. If you go on the Baldi wiki, this info is listed as me and Mistman conversing about it. I'm mind blown, truly. Yeah, but that's all the latest Baldi's Basics news. He's just working on the horizontal slice and working to get us the latest version. From what I can see, we're not going to have many larger things. Thank you to Vivid, Dermetic, and Crad for being the top members, the highest tier members. I really appreciate it. I love making these kinds of videos because I can just sit back and talk to you guys. It's more fun to edit than a normal one because I have to put little images and I have to figure out how to keep your guys' engagement. Also, look, I don't know if any of you... Oh, my camera overheated. I'll just show you with my phone. I got this Moomin book, if you know Comet in Moomin Land by Tove Jansson. I love Moomin. Me and Rebecca P. recently for my birthday went to a history museum that was doing an exhibit of Moomin. So it's really cool being able to have a ton of Moomin merch. I'm actually wearing a Moomin shirt right now. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I like making these videos. When this video comes out, there will be a stream today, so I can't wait to see you guys there, and I will see you all in the next video. I think that will be a Tamagotchi Life video, actually. So see you guys there. Goodbye, everybody. Ciao.